Hello friends, this is Wendy with Love and Stampin'. I am excited that you're here with me today. We are going to be doing a bunch of ink blending and masking, 3 different cards. Don't mind the video being a little bit chopped up with different situations going on. I have sped lots of parts of this video up just because it made sense to do so. So I'm starting out here with Stampin' Up's masking paper that I've cut to 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm running each of the pieces through my die cut machine. This is the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine from Stampin' Up. These are the Picture This dies. The ones that I just used prior to that are the Contour Scallop dies and then the Layering Circle dies. Now don't worry about keeping notes on what product I'm using or anything like that. In the description below the video, there is a link that is going to take you over to my blog where there will be all of the supplies listed. There are a lot of supplies listed because I'm doing 3 cards. So here you can see I pulled the backing off that masking paper and I'm adhering it down to a piece of basic white cardstock cut at 4 by 5 1/4. I used the Layering Circle dies, and now I'm using Gorgeous Grape, Highland Heather, and Flirty Flamingo ink to do my ink blending inside of this little circle. This is one of my very favorite techniques to do. I've done videos on this in the past. This isn't the only video I've ever done on this technique, but it is absolutely one of my very favorite go-to techniques. And there's a multitude of reasons why. So we're going to get into talking about that just a little bit. So this technique is fun because I feel that it's a great way to stretch your supplies. You can use any die cuts you have that are kind of just generic shapes to cut out of masking paper and then create a mask and then ink. And really, if you have limited supplies, this is a fantastic way to get a really professional looking finished card without using a super ton of supplies. What I'm doing here with my Flirty Flamingo, you might notice, is that I'm not inking all the way up to the very edge. So it's kind of tapering an ombre where it's just getting lighter and lighter and lighter up to the edge. The reason for that is because I want this to kind of have like a little bit of a spooky / evening feel, because I'm going to use that Scary Cute stamp set to stamp my silhouette. The other thing you need to do this technique are stamps that are solid. So they don't have to be anything in particular that, it's like, I'm trying to think of how to say this. They can be basically any image, and then you can create the inking to fit the image. So in this case, this inking fits the image that I'm about to stamp for you. I wanted to use my little trick or treat kids and stamp them across the bottom, and obviously you can see they're a silhouette, so that works out perfect. And then there's also a little moon, there's little bats, so this kind of just works out perfect to make a little scene here for this card base or card layer. So I'm choosing my images, and then I'm choosing my sentiment to go on this card and how I'm going to arrange it. But the beauty of this is it's very, very simple. Everything about this is simple. Anybody could make a card like this. Brand new card makers could make a card like this. You would have to invest in getting blending brushes or some kind of blending tool. You would need a few ink colors that coordinate well together, because you do want to make sure when you're choosing your inks that they are inks that are going to blend well. And in my case, I don't do very well stamping in the same place over and over, so I definitely need a stamp positioning tool, and in my case I'm using the Stamparatus that you see here. I get asked questions about this fairly frequently when I use it on my reels on Instagram. I've had people reach out and say, what is that thing you're using that is allowing you to stamp the way it is? And so I always share the information about the Stamparatus. It is $49, so it's a little bit of a higher price point, but I have to say that truthfully, most of my stamping would not go well if I didn't have a stamp apparatus. So here I am having a huge struggle getting this sentiment straight. And I left a lot of this kind of stuff in the video that normally I would cut out and edit, because I really wanted you guys to see that, first of all, just because something comes across perfectly at the end doesn't mean it started out that way. And it's really important to me to be transparent and share with you that even the people you watch on YouTube that you think are like the perfect crafters or whatever, they aren't. Like, we all have fails. We all have blunders. Everybody makes mistakes. So one of my tricks is exactly what you just saw me do. I use the grid paper to kind of line up my stamp and make sure that it's going to stamp straight before I stamp it on my finished piece. Okay, we're going to move on to card number 2 here. I cut the picture this die with the little circles out of the masking paper, and then we're layering this on top of Granny Apple Green cardstock, and then I'm going to ink blend Garden Green and Granny Apple Green in the bottom parts of these circles. Now, I kept this where the top kind of doesn't have a lot of inking, because in my head, this was kind of supposed to have a feel of like a witch's cauldron brewing and the bubbles coming out the top. Does that make sense? So that's where my head was when I was creating this. I was thinking these are the bubbles coming out of the top of a witch's cauldron. And we're not making a card with a cauldron, but I wanted that to be the feel of this. So I wanted to show you this because I think a lot of times we do ink blending on white cardstock and we think that that's our only option. In reality, you can blend on any color cardstock you want. You just want to make sure, I probably wouldn't try to blend blue on brown, if that makes sense. So you just kind of have to know your colors. And I do get asked, how did you learn color combinations? How did you learn how to put color together? And I want to tell you, I was horrible at putting color together. I did not understand color theory. I didn't understand how colors work together and didn't work together. So I took a few classes. I just did a few online courses that were like explaining color theory. One of them I took was with Sandy Allnock, who's an amazing Copic artist. Well, she's just an amazing artist all around, but she's a really great person to follow on Instagram or YouTube. She is quite an art teacher. So if you are looking for understanding and learning more about art and color and all that kind of stuff, she's fantastic to follow. And then I practiced, and then I also purchased myself a color wheel. So you can get those at like art stores or even craft stores. You can order them on Amazon. It's just a little plastic thing that you get, and you can use it to help you understand what colors go well together and what colors will not work well together. So then I decided to stamp all of my witch hats. This one I wanted to do in silver on black. So I used my embossing buddy there to dust the top of my paper, because if you don't do that, then you end up with embossing powder sticking in areas you don't want it to stick. So it is important that you use some sort of embossing buddy tool to make sure your embossing powder doesn't stick in places you don't want it. And then I just covered it with silver embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set it. And I have lots of different ways that I use embossing powder. Honestly, it's whatever's closest to me. I've got a great little funnel tool from Stampin' Up! That helps me funnel the embossing powder right back into the jar, but I didn't have it out sitting next to me, and I had a piece of paper, so I grabbed that and did it with that. So, you can make a lot of things work lots of different ways. All right, so I'm heat embossing this, and then I'm going to stamp some hats. And since you might be new here, first I want to welcome you and say welcome to Love and Stampin'. And I also want to say that it's Saturday, and on Saturdays we do story time. So what happens is we bounce back and forth between talking about the card and doing story time. This is something I've done for a really long time, and when I don't do story time, people get upset about it. So we're going to have story time today, so hang with me. We're going to do a few more things about the cards and stuff like that, and then we're going to get into story time. That's why this video is a little bit longer. I left a lot of stuff in that I could have cut out because I know some of you are only here for the story. So, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. So I stamped this hat in Granny Apple Green a couple of times so I had a nice crisp image. And then I wanted to stamp this spider. I had an idea for this spider to be stamped at the top of the little bubble thing, but I wanted to trim this down first because I didn't like how much edge was around the bubbles. I wanted it to feel a little tighter and put together a little tighter. So I trimmed it off at 1/4 of an inch on each side, and it centered those bubbles and it made it feel a little bit more, I don't know, focused. And then I'm going to punch out all the hats and I'm going to add that spider. And I decided to stamp that spider 2 times in 2 different lengths. So I'm going to show you how to do that and extend that spider hanging down because I didn't want just one spider. I felt like I needed 2. This ended up being my favorite card. I really loved how this card came together. I thought it was so super cute and it was such fun to make that it just made me happy. I personally don't use a ton of Halloween cards. I just don't need them. If I'm being totally honest, how many people do you send a Halloween card to? I always send Halloween cards to my little nieces that live in Montana. This year, because I've made more Halloween cards than normal, I'll probably send a few more than I normally would, maybe with a candy or a treat or something like that. But all of that is just to say, if you're not a Halloween person, I get it. I personally don't like anything spooky or scary with Halloween. I only like fun, cutesy stuff. So that's kind of like with this card. It's fun, it's cutesy, the spider's silly looking, the hats are kind of whimsical. Those are the kinds of Halloween cards I like to make. I'll never be the person that makes a bunch of scary, spooky stuff. I just don't like it. So anyway, all of that, I don't even know why you needed to know that, but I'm just telling you. So I love this card though, and I love how it finished. So let's get into a little bit of story time. What has been happening in the life of Wendy? So most of you who follow me regularly already know my daughter started high school, and holy buckets, Batman. It has been a journey. First of all, she is changing a lot. I just was talking to my sister about this last night and I had a good cry. My daughter's just changing a lot. She's growing up. She's going through that normal 13, 14-year-old angst where, if you have children, So I don't even have to explain it to you. We're the stupidest people on the planet, of course, and know nothing, and she's knows it all. And that's how life is right now. So I remember, I think my mom got me something when I was a kid around my daughter's age that said, you should pack up and move out now while you still know everything. No truer statement has ever been made regarding that age. I remember that age being really, really hard. And yeah, so we're working through that. In other news, she is doing great in school, always. My child is a very academically focused, and she also plays sports. So she's just an all-around good kid in general. She just loves playing sports, and she loves academics and doing well. And so it makes our job a little bit easier as parents. We never have to nag her to do homework. She comes home and does it. We never have to, get on her about stuff like that. So that's a huge blessing, and I'm not taking that for granted. Back to the card here. I decided I needed one more witch hat, and I'm stamping it in or is this Gorgeous Grape? Okay, I think I stamped it in Gorgeous Grape first. Yes, that's what this is. And then I decided it was too dark, and I had to stamp in Highland Heather. So the first one I stamped was really dark, and I felt like it almost read like black. So I didn't like that because I had a black hat and I wanted it to read more purple. So I restamped after I punched this. I restamped it in Highland Heather, and then that's what I ended up using. So anyway, back to the school thing. So she also wants to join all the things. So she's running for freshman class vice president. She wants to. I'm not sure what the process is or what's happening with that. Anyway, that's that. She also wants to be an FFA. So that's happening. And for those of you who are like, what is that? It's Future Farmers of America. So we live in a very agriculturally driven rural community in California. And I know there's a lot of people who have never visited California that think it is so weird when I talk about this, because it doesn't seem like California would be a place that has a lot of rural area. But folks, let me explain to you. Most of the almonds that get shipped around the world, like 93% of the world's almonds grown in California. So I'm just here to tell you there is an enormous part of California that is farmland and agricultural based, because we have fantastic weather here that is conducive to farming. And so we grow a ton of food here. Pistachios, avocados, almonds, just to name a few. There's tons of stuff, but that's just to name a few. So we have rice fields. We have all kinds of stuff that is grown here. And I'm sharing this because I think sometimes California just gets such a bad rap for the politics and some of the weird things that do go on here in the state. But California is also responsible for providing a lot of food to the country, and it's also responsible for a lot of agriculture and farming. So all of that being said, we live in a very rural community in Northern California. Okay. And so agriculture is a big deal where we are. So FFA is a big deal. And, so you can't join it till you're in high school. So she's joined FFA, and we went last night. At the time I'm recording this, we went last night to a FFA dinner, which I think was kind of just like the kickoff dinner for the start of the FFA season type thing, and welcoming the new FFA members. So she got a shirt. We purchased a shirt. They had really beautiful bouquets on all of the tables that the floral class had made, and we could buy them for $5. So of course I had to buy one because I love bouquets. So we bought one of those, super, super cute. And we had a really yummy dinner, and it was just kind of a dinner to hang out and like visit. But we are not the super social types as far as like new crowds and stuff. I mean, we're very social in the realm of like having our friends over and spending time with people, but we are not the kind of people that show up. Isn't this card cute? I'm just telling you. Now watch what I do for the spider. I think that's what I'm about to do here. The little spider, you just take your little pin and you make little dots, and now you got a second spider from a second string at a separate height or length. So anyway, we had a really nice time. Back to not being social. We're not the kind of people that like go into a new crowd and do very well. My husband's very not social, antisocial. I'm more social, but as I'm getting older, it's just like I'm so picky and choosy about who and where I spend my time that I just don't invest as much energy as I used to into like mingling and getting to know people. And I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing, but it's just the truth. So that is what we did last night for FFA. And then last weekend, we attended our first football game for the high school football, and it was on Friday, and I forgot what it was like, and I have to admit I loved it. Okay, really here, quick, right here to the paper. I tore my mask at the top. Blunder. I am not recutting this mask and wasting this paper. So I very carefully lined this mask up, added it down to the card base, and then I very carefully added this other piece. Bada bing, no problems. So just because you make a faux pas, try to fix it. because I really don't like starting over. I really don't like wasting. So I was able to fix it and it was totally fine. We're using Starry Sky, Orchid Oasis, and Tahitian Tide for this card. And that's the scallop contour die that I cut this from. And we're going to ink blend and do exactly what we've been doing with the other cards. So hang tight. This card is my favorite theme-wise because it features Joseph and Mary and the baby Jesus. But as far as decorative way, the witch hat is my favorite. So let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite in the end, because I it's hard to decide. And also you'll notice that here at the bottom of this with the Tahitian Tide, I kind of tail it off and do that ombre effect again where it gets very, 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 very light at the bottom, so that it's almost not even there. Okay, so back to story time. So we went to the football game, me and Macy. My husband did not go. And we have friends whose sons both play football. One of them just broke his finger playing, so he's probably going to be out for half of the season. But the other one is a freshman, so he didn't get any time on the field, but he was there, and that's the important part. And it was fun to sit and be there and be back at that, because that's where I went to high school. I went to high school for, well, at least the first half of high school. That's where I went to high school. So anyway, I really, really, really enjoyed being there. However, halfway through the varsity game, I was like, I'm out. I gotta go. Because y'all, can we talk about the bleachers? It is wreaking havoc. Like, I cannot sit on those hard, horrendous bleachers. First of all, if you know me and you've been around here a while, you know that I have a spinal fusion. So my lower back is not the best. And so sitting on those bleachers was like torture. So I do have a stadium chair, because I know one of you is going to say, you got to get one of those stadium chairs. I have one. I just didn't bring it. Will I bring it for the next football game? Yes, I will. I will not be leaving it at home. So I don't care if I look like an old fuddy-duddy lady with her stupid stadium chair. I'm bringing it. And everybody else can just, whatever, be jealous that I have one protecting my back. You know those chairs, they like clip onto the bench and they're cushy and lovely? Yeah, I'm bringing that. So we're not going to the game that's happening this coming Friday, but our homecoming game is the following Friday. So we will be going to that. And I'm really looking forward to it. My daughter is going to, it's water polo. So my daughter plays water polo, and it will be her water polo team's turn to volunteer, like in the snack shack and stuff. So she'll be doing that. She'll be working in the snack shack. And I probably should as well, but I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, that's what's happening. So that's what's been going on in our life. We are doing everything we can to keep up with a teenager. The other thing that's happening, I don't know if you've noticed, people, but my Instagram and my Facebook is starting to get really awesome, because I'm doing all these little reel videos with fun little stuff that some of it is different than what I'm showing you here. Now, some of it's the same, like, but some of it is totally different than what you're seeing on YouTube. So if you don't already follow me on Instagram and Facebook, you should, and you should watch my reels. And if you really, really love me, you should watch them over and over and over again because they've offered me a bonus if I have certain amount of plays on my reels. I am kind of just kidding, but I'm just saying, for those of you who don't purchase from me, and I've had a few people reach out over the years and say like, well, what can I do to support you? I'm already a demonstrator, but I love your stuff. Or what can I do to support you? I order from somebody else, but I really love your videos. That is something you can do to support me, truly. Like watching my videos, liking them, subscribing, going to Instagram, going to Facebook, liking and watching my stuff helps me. Isn't that weird? Like, it's such a funny thing, but it's totally free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it is a huge help. Okay, so this is the piece to use stamp set that you're seeing me use here, and I absolutely love it. However, there was one little area where okay, two things happened with this card. One is that I stamped the sentiment and I didn't like it because you couldn't really see it very good, and because I didn't use my stamp apparatus, I couldn't restamp it. So, faux pas number one. Faux pas number two is that if you look closely at Joseph's robe, you will notice there's like a line where it's white on like his elbow and the back of his robe or head thing. I did not like that. So what I had to do is I had to go in, well, right here, I'm going in with my black marker and touching up some areas that didn't stamp all the way. Then after this dried for a little bit, I went in with my blender and my blending brush, and I added a little bit of Tahitian tide to that area on Joseph's robe because I didn't like that. Right here, you see. I'm very careful about it though because I don't want to smear anything. But I just had to, I couldn't stand how white it was. And then I ended up finishing it off by stamping the sentiment on a little circle and adding it to the card. And these are the finished cards. Aren't they cute? I just love them. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, all the things. If you want to purchase any of the products that you saw me use, you can go to shop.loveandstampin.com, or there's a link in the description below this video that will take you directly to the actual supply list. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Bye-bye.